The Law of Respect on today's Do Hard Things Today podcast. Jumping back into our study of John C. Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Today we cover law number 7, the law of respect. People naturally follow better leaders than themselves. So we're continuing through this. We've been going, our leadership team here at Harrison's has been going through this book, and what I believe is one of the top 10 leadership books that have ever been penned. In fact, I would argue that a lot of John Maxwell's work after this is just spawning off of ideas from this book. So we're talking about the law of respect and why it's important for a leader to be respected, and what are ways that you can gain the respect. So we've got Bonnie Blackwell and Jed Blackwell with us. Bonnie Blackwell runs one of our stores in South Carolina. Jed Blackwell runs all of our online and marketing efforts with our company. We always like to bring them in to get their insights. So I want to ask this question, and you don't have to mention names, but have you ever worked for a leader that you did not have respect for?
Yes.
Yes.
So why, what are the attributes of that person that caused you not to have respect for them?
Inconsistency. I'll answer that first. I'll go first on that. Inconsistency.
Okay.
Inconsistency, the inability or unwillingness to apply independent thought to a set of data. And by that, I mean, why are we so governed by something that works somewhere else without taking into account what might work in our market might be something completely different? Just a complete unwillingness to accept that any decisions not only don't have to be cookie cutter, but sometimes can't be cookie cutter decisions. The inability to apply individual circumstances to a broader decision.
Okay. Bonnie?
One of the things from previous things where I've worked in the past was the unwillingness to ask opinions of the people actually doing the work. Like just making things like, this is what you're going to do, and we don't care if it's going to work or not. And just being completely unwilling to do the work themselves. Like, I'm going to sit in here and do this, and y'all are going to go out and do all that, but I'm not going to help you with any of it. You've got to figure it out on your own.
Yeah. How'd that make you feel?
Awful.
So everybody wants to increase their leadership ability. Nobody wants to, I don't think, well, I'm sure there are some people out there that couldn't care less if people respected them or not. They just want a title. But I think true leaders want to be respected. And so today we're going to talk about how you can gain that respect. And John Maxwell starts this chapter with an incredible story that's a true story, one that we'll all know. And Jed, I want you to talk for a second because you're so good with words. Tell us about this when people think about a leader, she may not be the first person that comes to their mind, but after reading, I know that she should be. Tell us about this lady named Miss Tubman.
Yes. Obviously a hugely influential character in American personality in American history. Basically established the Underground Railroad. Never lost anybody. Never. Once she started to, this is a terrible word, but for lack of a better word, smuggle people out of slavery, because that's what they were considered property. Once she started smuggling people out of slavery, she never lost anybody. Can you imagine the force of personality to get you to follow her when you know that death is the most likely outcome if you fail?
Yeah, I think there was a $12,000 bounty on her head at the time, which he equated to today's would be around $400,000.
Right.
bounty on her head from the slave owners.
Right.
And aside, but the interesting thing is that she gained the respect of white rich people in the North.
Yeah.
Which she was completely different than, being a previous slave and other. How did that happen? Because that did not happen back in those days.
Well, I think it was just, sheer force of personality and her commitment to what she was doing. Because when you consider we're going to organize this flight, we are fleeing from people who intend to kill us if they catch us. We are going to use different stops, different aliases, different ways to evade people along the way. And if we make it, everything's going to be fine and we're going to be free. And she did that once. And that's amazing that she did that once. And then she did it 18 more times.
Yeah. And that's the piece that construct me, was she was 100% committed to this cause. And the people that she was freeing had to know that
right.
Okay, she's here. Can you imagine her showing up? You're enslaved, and can you imagine her showing up and you seeing her and knowing that, okay, she's gotten a lot of people freed. She didn't have to come back here. She could stay in the North and not have this problem, but here she is. She's shown back up. I mean, that's the kind of person you want to follow.
Absolutely is.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about another one, Bill Walton. So Bill Walton, there's a great documentary right now. It's ESPN has, I think it's one of the 30 for 30s. It's called The Luckiest Man Alive. And it talks about Bill Walton's story. But talk to us about Bill Walton.
I think free spirit is the best thing that describes Bill Walton. Incredible player. I think one of the only basketball players in history, college basketball players in history. I think he and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who both played for John Wooden, who is a leader's leader, and I'll talk about him in a minute. Only 3 guys to be National Player of the Year 3 times in a row. And Coach Wooden had a certain set of rules, and one of those was on your grooming. You weren't going to have long hair or a beard to play for John Wooden. And Walton came in with a beard. Wooden asked him to shave it. He said, "Coach, I'm not going to do it, and you can't make me do it." I would say, "No, I can't, but I can determine how much you play." So Walton adapted to that, but by challenging Wooden, by seeing what happened with the challenge, other players, based again on his force of personality, his likability, his leadership, they followed Walton, and they realized, hey, if first, this guy believes strongly enough about this to challenge Coach, and second, Coach is not going to play us if we don't do what Coach says. That it helped UCLA become even better than and at the time they were the standard, and they continued to be for quite a while.
And what does that tell you about John Wooden?
That he had a different way of thinking about things as well. That his leadership was adaptable to what it needed to be. John Wooden has some of my favorite leadership phrases in the history of these things. The first one being, "If you don't have time to do it right, when we have time, do it over." Because that's what's coming. Do you know how Wooden started his practices every year? 10 national championships. I think it was 10 national championships. Maybe it might have been 11. A bunch of them in a row. Do you know how Wooden started his practices every year?
I think he rolled a basketball.
Gentlemen, this is a basketball.
And why would you do that?
To break everything down to its fundamental parts and start everybody over and show everybody, look, you might think you're fantastic, but you don't know how to do this my way yet. And we're going to do this my way with your help. He taught them how to put their socks on so they wouldn't get a blister.
And understand to our listeners, because some of our listeners have no context for UCLA basketball.
Right.
It was a dynasty that had never been seen and has never been seen since, that anything that would even compare to it from a dynasty standpoint. So he is dealing with the best college and the best high school prep stars
Absolutely.
That are coming. He has the pick of the litter on people. And when you talk to people, it's funny. I always like to see the way people talk about those that they've been with. And you talk about Bill Walton, you said Lou Alcindor or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Most people know him, and so many other, but those would be the two main ones. I love to see them being interviewed and talking about Coach Wooden, and just there's a countenance that comes over them that they have so much respect and love for him, and they'll tell you that he was times he was hard on them, he held them accountable, he did, but they have so much. I just love watching those videos of these superstars of superstars and how much respect they have for a man that really had nothing in common with them.
Yeah, he's beloved, especially by his former players.
Yep. So I think that's our goal. So if we're trying to gain this respect, John Maxwell gives a few things in his book. If you're following along with you, which I would always encourage you to, on page 85, he gives a few things, and the first one is natural leadership ability. Now, this can be a double-edged sword. When you say natural leadership ability, now Maxwell makes the argument that everybody can increase their leadership ability, but would you argue that some people are gifted with more than others? This has been debated many times. Do people grow, just continue to grow into leadership, or are some people born with one of their giftings is the ability to lead better than others?
I think that they are. I think some people are born with almost like a charisma and a personality that lends them to be a better leader than some other people. I think that can be a personality trait. I think it is something, even if you're a natural leader, that you still have to grow in that position and learn things and continue to evolve. But I do think that there are some people that are born natural leaders. Some people, they struggle with earning those leadership abilities.
I absolutely think so. I think there are born leaders. I think there are born salesmen. I think there are born listeners. I think a lot of strong character traits, I think you can develop a lot of them, but I think that a lot of people are born with some of these things.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think that there are many people that are born with those things and used the wrong way can lead to a long history of they can be successful in a lot of things, but not have the respect of those around them. And he gives point number 2 and said these are qualities of good leaders. And he says respect for others. That's what he says. In contrast, respect for others sets good leaders apart from bad ones. Good leaders understand that much of leadership is voluntary. When leaders show respect for others, especially for people who have less power or a lower position than theirs, they gain respect. And so leaders aren't just so concerned about being out front and being the top dog, for lack of a better term, but they've got respect for everybody in the entire organization. And then number 3, difficulties overcome. Respect is gained on difficult ground. Anytime leaders care enough about people to positively confront them or help them solve a problem, overcome a blind spot, or change a destructive behavior, both of them grow. How much have you guys grown in some of the difficulties that you have faced? And how have people helped you that you have encountered to overcome them?
Grown tremendously.
A lot.
Just tremendously in some difficulties. My past jobs have been a little bit different in that I was usually chronicling difficulties for other people, but I did work for a company that went out of business and was immediately struck by how much other people were willing to help, how much other leaders were willing to help. Couple of years ago, when I was still with the USA Today Corporation, there was a round of layoffs. I didn't get caught in the layoffs, but I had a buddy who was in leadership at a local television station. And he didn't ask me if I'd been laid off. He didn't ask me who had been laid off. He didn't ask me if I needed any help. He said, if you'll be here Monday morning, I'll put a camera in your hand. He was going to help immediately. That guy's a leader. I mean, that's the guy that's going to take care of people.
Yeah, and I think you have leaders miss a lot of opportunities with people when they see the struggle and see the difficulties to lead them through that. You can lead people through that, and it builds an endearment that you never forget. The next one he talks about is the one that I believe when I was reading and thinking about Harriet Tubman, of how did she garner such respect and become such a strong leader, because I would venture to say she probably was not listening to leadership podcasts.
No.
Probably not watching Instagram reels.
You don't think?
And probably, she probably was not in a leadership cohort or anything.
Right.
But the one that he calls out that just reminds me of her, and why people, when she showed up, were so eager to jump on her, the railroad, the Underground Railroad, is courage. She had an unbelievable amount of courage to go charge into what she believed in with really almost what some would call reckless abandon, where she was completely committed to the cause, and if that cause cost her her life, then she was willing to give that. So courage is a huge thing. And let's think about the times during COVID and some of the uncertainty that has been faced. Just a lot of times you have to have courage, and leaders at times, you have to almost even fake yourself into the courage to where you keep pushing forward until you really start believing it and believing in what you're doing. The next one is success. How important is success? Is a track record of success. When you think about who you're going to follow, why would you follow? You talk about John Wooden. Why would people come into his basketball arena and be accepting of the fact that he's rolling a basketball out and saying, "Gentlemen, this is a basketball"?
Because it's absolutely as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, this is good.
You were at the top of the world.
You're at the top of the world, and you look around. I mean, why do you think they hang banners in arenas? Why don't they hang banners in arenas?
For success.
To denote that you were at the top of the world.
Yeah, that you were at the top of the world.
You were successful.
Yeah, we were successful. This is who we have been, and this is who we are. And it lays that expectation for what we're going to. The next one is loyalty. And this can be one that is very, I think it's one of the most missing ones that we find in our culture today. And that is loyalty and not selfishness. You'll find a lot of leaders that can become extremely selfish, and there's no loyalty. His first word was, "We live in an age of free agency in everything."
That's 100% true.
Yeah. I mean, there's really, loyalty is something that's going out the window. So if you find people that are loyal, and if you as a leader will be loyal, it is a trait that is quickly waning away from our society. And the last one is value added to others. And we talked about this one before, of how are you making people better? And that old thing, what's that old word, the old phrase called iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Does iron really sharpen iron? Trick question.
After a fashion, it absolutely does.
Yeah,
there are two different forms of iron.
Yeah, there's two different forms of iron. But if you, realistically speaking, if you rub iron on each other, it creates heat and friction. Doesn't necessarily sharpen each other, but it sounds really good, and it's in the Bible, so we're not going to criticize that. So adding value to others is, you want to. I forgot which chapter it was we were covering, but we talked about what would happen if we sought to every encounter we had with another person, we wanted them to leave better than they were when they encountered us the first time.
Well, the world would be a much better place.
World would be a much better place. World would be a much better place. And so as leaders, no matter where you find yourself on this leadership spectrum, try to do that. Try to, every person that you meet and encounter, try to make them better. And if you do that, we're going to be in a much better place. So respect, the law of respect. As we move through this book, this is another one that is something that is just crucial if you're wanting to develop and continue to lead wherever you are, again, on that whole leadership spectrum. Any closing thoughts on this from you guys?
I try to, we have leadership positions within our stores, and I was having a conversation with one of my employees. It was after my day off, and I asked her how the day went, and she was like, well, I just don't, I'm kind of young. I don't feel like they respect me when I'm asking them to do things. And I said, respect is something that is earned. Just because you have the title doesn't automatically guarantee that respect. I said, if you keep doing what you're supposed to be doing and you keep going out there and doing the hard stuff with them, I said, you will earn that respect. You just got to keep at it. Yep. And she is starting to see that pay off.
Yeah, that positional leadership can make people do what you say, but positional leadership cannot make somebody respect you.
Correct.
You have to earn that, and it can be earned, but just having a title really gives you nothing except the ability to tell people what to do, and they'll do it until they can find somewhere else to do it.
Right.
Is where they'll be. So, great discussion. Appreciate you guys and your input and where we're going. We're all growing in this together. You can follow along with us. I would encourage you to get a copy of the book if you haven't already. We're going to continue down this journey, and with as you're trying to gain respect and anything else that you're doing, just focus on today. Focus on winning your day today. Just do the hard things today, and garnering respect can be considered a hard thing, and tomorrow will take care of itself.